Good evening, everybody. I'm Kate Chartner, Chair of the Historic Districts Commission, and I welcome you to our meeting of February 12th, 2025. I think we just have two items on the agenda, and I am looking for the sorry, hang on one sec. The statement that I make. Sorry, everyone. Okay, sorry, here it is. All right, okay. We are conducting this meeting online in accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. The public may access this call through both telephone and video conferencing. Members of the public will have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on applications and discussions following the petitioner's presentation and questions from the commission. To do so, please raise your hand in the participant function of the Zoom meeting platform. If you're calling in and cannot use the app platform, you may raise your hand by dialing *9. Our host will mute microphones of those not speaking, and in order to preserve bandwidth, may need to turn off video too, with the exception of the commissioners, the host, and the current applicant. The chair will call on commissioners for comments on an application and then open the meeting for public comment. Once there are no more public comments, I will ask for a motion from the commission to approve, to continue, to approve with conditions, or to reject, then a seconder and conduct a roll call vote. Once the commission has acted on an application, the applicant is free to leave the meeting. And then I'll do a roll call for all the members tonight. Dennis, you're on mute. Yeah, Dennis is here. Tim?
Here.
Melinda Shumway?
Here.
Louis Caldarella?
Here.
Walter Clay?
Here.
Kristen Dahlman?
Here.
And I'm Kate Chartner, and I'm here. And tonight, the commissioners who will be voting will be myself, Tim Whitney, Melinda Shumway, Dennis Fiore, and Walter Clay. And with that, let us please start with our first item. Who would like to present?
Good evening, Carrie Byrne with Catalan Architects, for 93 Monument, so I would be happy to present.
Thank you, Carrie.
Okay, I will share, and then along with Westworth Landscape Architect, we'd be happy to walk you through the revised proposal. Okay, and I do have as well the previous iteration, just if there are any questions with our previous proposal and any changes there. So I would be happy to show that as well if there are any related questions. We are working with Carrie and Kurt Von Braun at 93 Monument Street. And as we have discussed previously, Carrie and Kurt purchased this home. They love the character and the historic charm and are looking to make some updates and also just improve some functional aspects of the home. As we look down the driveway and what we saw this morning at the site walk, the first part of the architectural changes that we are proposing are on this driveway side right here, a removal of this existing side entry door. We don't feel it's, historic to the character and creates a bit of a hurdle, if you will, kind of in use of the driveway space here. In lieu of that, we are proposing to add a connector from the back of the house right here to the existing carriage house, just to improve functionality and make it more useful for Carrie and Kurt as they live here in the years to come. So as we look at this is the driveway side of the home. This is the existing door that we are proposing to remove, and we are replacing two of the windows on this wall. This is a new one on the right, and this is just a replacement. Um, from last time we met with you, we have revised the style to be much more in keeping with the historic 2/2 mutton pattern of the windows. And we've done the same at the connector here. We previously had windows with transoms above, and really took to heart a lot of the comments and feedback from the commission, and um, took another look at the style of those, revised to be the 2/2, removed the transoms, um, and just looking to keep this as secondary to the main home while picking up on a lot of the detailing. At the carriage house here, we eliminated the proposed doors that we were asking for here previously had windows in them, and I know that we discussed that was not as in keeping with the historical nature. So we've gotten rid of the windows in these garage doors. I don't know if you recall, these are the sliding doors currently, and we are proposing to make them overhead motorized garage doors. But looking to keep them as close to the historic style as possible, so no windows. Um, and we are also keeping the hayloft door, as minimal as possible and not framing it out and not kind of accentuating any of the trim there. Um, does anybody have questions on this side?
If I may, the replacement window on the part of the oldest part of the structure in the old original house. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? I may have missed it.
Just right here, this window right here?
Yes, please.
Absolutely. So, as seen right here, so it's this window right here. It has already, it's a newer window.
Okay.
It's existing in our work here, but it is a newer window. It is a 6/6 right now, and 6/6 light pattern. And in kind of looking at the overall, that whole elevation, and looking at so the window that we're proposing is right over here. In our efforts to keep them more in tune with the older part of the home and do the 2/2, we're proposing just to kind of revert this back to a 2/2 instead of the 6/6 that it is right here. Legitimately, we've been kind of looking at stylistically the different periods of the home and the kind of the evolution of, the older kind of Gothic front. There's the mansard portion in the back, and trying to weave kind of the new work in with both of those that are there. And so our, efforts here on all sides are trying to highlight, the character and the charm of the home. And so we felt that both the window that we were adding here and this one would fit more consistently with the home being the 2/2.
Yeah, I understand. I just, I
Yeah.
realized that I was not aware of how old it was and wanted it to be. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. So that is on kind of the northern driveway side of the home. On the front of the house.
I have some questions about that front of the house also.
Sure.
Part of the barn. You are proposing taking off the siding that is on the front and replacing it with something that's more uniform. Is that correct?
Correct. It's the same. So the existing are kind of the vertical match boards. We are looking to replace with the same width and style in the sense that they are the match boards. But we are looking for more uniform in the sense that the existing boards that are there are very warped and cupping, and it's a bit of a patchwork, and we are looking to improve on that.
And my feeling is that part of the charm of that building, and I think that siding is probably original. I think it was probably done at a time when they they did it with whatever leftover wood they had. You have to remember, if this was done even in the mid-19th century, that sawed boards are hard to come by, and they took a lot of work in order to produce those. I'm not sure how wealthy this landowner was. So I think the charm of that is the randomness of those boards. And I would suggest that if you're worried about them being tight or not, that you put something behind them and you back them with something. Now, if it's plywood or some kind of laminate or whatever, but I would be against replacing all those boards with a uniform boards on the front of them, because I think the character of the barn just goes totally away. The same thing with the little V that's or the little peak that's over the window. I'm assuming that's original. I don't know if that's painted on totally or whether that's or if it's created as a little peak like the rest of the house, because I gather it's to match those little peaks over the windows on the sides for the louvers. But that's part of the charm. And I know you want to make it look like all the rest of them. Part of the charm is it doesn't look like the rest of them. So I'm against uniformity on the front of this building. I don't think you should touch it any more than you have to.
So Dennis, what do you think about the little, what, I don't know, what do you call them? Pediments over the garage doors, the sliding doors?
I have no strong feeling about them. Since the doors are now wider than was probably there, and as we saw this morning, by the way the boards go over the right-hand door, I think there was a single door and it was taller that was there. So I think those are done to sort of mimic other details in the house, and I don't think they have any real need to remain in my mind anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And a carriage going in there probably would have been taller or
Yes.
than a car, right?
Yeah, and Dennis, the little peak above that window is not painted. It's kind of almost like a hand hewn, little pyramid of sorts.
That's what I was thinking, but I wasn't quite sure. I didn't get close enough to it. So I
Yeah.
think that should remain like it is, because that's part of the original look at the front of that building.
Yeah, I know.
It's kind of crude. It doesn't really match what's on the house, but this is part of the charm of it. I have a hang up, and that is the details really, really matter. And you start eroding details and you erode the charm of a structure.
And the authenticity. I mean, it's, that's the story. Okay, anyone else?
Yeah,
On
I'd
this-
say, Dennis, am I correct in assuming that what you're saying is coming from an absolute unbridled love for the charm of this building?
Yes.
Thank you.
I think the window itself too is original with the rippled glass too, which you said you were keeping, but
Yes.
it also fits together.
Our goal has always been, yes, we are keeping the window. I think the part of the holdup with the boards has also just been, yes, that they it's kind of letting rain and other in, but I understand where you're coming from with the historic nature of it.
Yeah, there are ways you can deal with it to seal it from behind, and I think you can make it more watertight. It's intriguing to think about the history of windows on this building, because if we think of the window in the barn as being quote unquote original, was it recycled from someplace else? Were there always over two windows in the cottage, or did it have smaller paned windows at one point? I'm not advocating to go anywhere with that. I just think it's interesting to think about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the earlier photos we have show that, but I completely agree. It's interesting the evolution of it, because they have those on all sides. Mm-hmm.
This is Tom Catalano. I might add, if we would please the commission, we could remove all the siding on the street side of the barn and repurpose it once we had a chance to resheathe it. And then, as you said, we could just put it back on, assuming we could probably salvage a reasonable amount of it, but we would probably have to add some new material to finish it, because I don't think we get 100% success in removing the boards, but we can certainly take them off, clean them up, and reuse them and keep the character of that siding that's there.
I think that would be great.
And depending on how thick they are, you might be able to put them through a planer and reverse them.
Yeah, we'll look at that. We have somebody lined up to do the work who's well-versed in
Mm-hmm.
recycling materials.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Kate,
Yeah,
I guess we're on the barn before we move to the rest of the house, but I just wanted to add, I agree with all the comments, and I think we should be very careful even about removing those boards and trying to plane them or make them, there's a tremendous amount of texture. And it's very clear in our guidelines. It says barns should be preserved and maintained with any original character defining features retained and restored. So I think we have to be careful even about taking those boards off and changing them. The other comment is there are lights being proposed over the overhead doors, I believe. And
Yeah, Carrie had not mentioned that, so I don't know if we were getting a lighting plan.
so I think we
afterwards.
we do need to discuss all the lighting being proposed because it's not clear to me exactly where all the lighting is. So maybe we should come back to lighting at a later
That's what I thought.
time.
Okay. We do have,
Yes.
yes, we have a lighting plan that we can show you all those. Mhm.
But I agree
We'll
with
come back.
Kim. I'm a little, I mean, Dennis, if I, the feeling and the look you would like to keep, I feel it would be kind of compromised if the boards were removed for any reason.
If I may, I think we can remove them. I don't think we should plane them. I think we would want to preserve the existing exterior face of the boards. But we do need to have a weather resistant barrier behind them.
Mhm.
And we need to insulate this building. So we could actually remove them. Just clean them up. I don't think we plane them. We probably remove any loose paint, reinstall them and repaint it and keep the character of the boards that as intact as possible. And then where necessary, infill with new material. But I don't think we would need more than about maybe a 10% infill of new material.
Yeah, I was not suggesting trying to radically alter the appearance of the boards as much as be able to fit them in a way that made them a little bit more watertight. Judicious.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Judicious decupping, I suppose, is how I would think of that.
Now, Walter, that cupping is charm. Don't take away the cupping.
No, but this morning the argument was that birds and bugs and beasts could make their way right through it. That it was that bad and that far away from watertight. So I'm just thinking of how one might be able to get the existing boards a little bit closer to a substrate to pick that up without it being too compromised.
Mhm. Any other thoughts? Louis, anything to add?
No, I agree. I think the texture is important to the structure, but I think you need to make it functional. But I don't think it should be planed down to be flat, but just cleaned up. I think I agree with what Tom said.
Okay, good. All right, moving on to the front.
So on the front of the home, we are not looking to change anything here, other than adding a copper gutter across the front.
Mhm.
We are looking to add that on the sides as well. But on the very front, that would be the only addition here.
Mhm. Oh, wait, Carrie, what is the roof material? Is it the same from the previous iteration for the connector?
So correct. It's the shingles, the same shingles on the home, the cedar
Same
shingles.
same pitch as before, or it looks a little
It got, let me just grab these. So we pulled the roof line down a bit. And so it's not as tall visibly. So the roof got just a little bit steeper. But the intention was, we got rid of the transoms and pulled the eave line down a bit to just bring down the scale of that.
Okay, great, thanks.
And on the front, you had been talking about trellises or posts at one point for vines.
That'll be west, right?
Yes.
Correct. Yeah. If you don't mind, we can just that's just kind of
but it's not a structural addition to the front of the building for that.
It is a decorative element on the front.
Okay. Well, that's different than not changing anything else.
Now we're doing architectural. And I think trellis is under Wes's purview.
Okay.
We will definitely touch on that in when we look at the landscape elements. And then so moving around to the south, the changes here that we are proposing. So the last time that we met, we had looked right here. We had again kind of the connector between the main house and carriage house, and then we had proposed sliding doors from the kitchen out. You know, again, trying to be responsive to the feedback, and we pulled down the roof line, scaled down the connector, and then took more of a look at the window replacement, door replacement that we were proposing here. We have since moved the door out of the kitchen around to the back of the home and would like to replace the windows, but instead of just the existing double hungs that are there that don't seem to have a lot of relation to other elements, we would like to propose a bay in style of the existing bay in the older part of the home in the front, picking up on a lot of the detailing, the window style, the trim elements, and you know, trying to tie in and respond to the character in the older part of the home. So this would be the addition here. This is visible from the street. I think when we were out there earlier today, we saw that a lot of, you know, the proposed work in the back was slightly visible if you walk down far enough, but not highly visible from the sidewalk out there. The one other change that we did talk about with Kurt and Carrie, and it didn't make it in time for the revised submission, was the siding right here. This is actually when we drew this up, we thought it was matching the clapboards on the home here. It's actually the match boards, and we were discussing with Carrie and Kurt. Let me see if I have a photo of it. Possibly, you know, proposing to replace with the clapboards, but it's this right here. We are certainly open to the commission feedback on this, you know, understanding that it was probably an older kind of infill piece here. There used to be a door. And so that was something else that we were recently talking about here. Are there any questions or aspects to discuss on this side?
I would think the non-matching clapboards is probably more historic.
As kind of an infill evolution of.
Yeah, yeah, it
Mhm.
tells the story more. It relates to the barn.
Yeah, I would agree. I wouldn't fool around with that. I have to say that I think this is much better than what you had before.
I agree. I know it's hard to respond to, you know, a lot of feedback, but I think you've done a good job with it.
I agree as well.
Yeah.
I'll go as far as to say I like it.
Don't get Walter, don't get carried away.
Wow. Out of character, maybe.
It's true, particularly, yeah. True.
I never, as I told you, I was on this is how long I've been around. We approved the window you're now taking out. And now that I see it, why did we ever approve that window? It's really
Hindsight is.
That was in 1867, I think.
That's great. Can we move to a motion?
Not yet,
not.
Okay.
not yet. Not so fast.
Good try.
Commissioners, any thought on the, I don't even know what to call, Carrie, what do you call that part where the former door was that's, you know, not clapboard anymore?
Oh, this piece right
Yeah, what are
here.
we calling this?
It's the pantry in the home. It's kind of just the south wall of
Okay,
the pantry, but
There's an eccentricity to that,
which
there's this constant effort to remove eccentricities, I think. And I wouldn't touch it. That's my feeling, is that's part of the old house. It may be 60 years old, maybe 80, I don't know, but I would vote for leaving that as is and not trying to make everything all uniform.
I would agree.
yeah, pretty clear on that one. Okay, any other architectural questions for the commissioners? And then we'll move on to Wes's work.
I do
there
have an
any,
issue with the bay window, the new
Mhm.
one coming in. Just in terms of the historic preservation of this house, introducing historic-like elements kind of falsifies the building. I would rather see something that's a little quieter and not trying to be historic.
I agree. Generally, that's not something we like, and I'm not speaking for the other commissioners. I think one of the challenges, well, I know one of the challenges for this house, which we talked about at the last meeting, was, there's the very much sort of, Gothic little cottage bit in the front. I mean, that's the facade, and then there's the mansard roof, and then there's, kind of a simple barn, and so it's, I think, difficult to thread that needle.
I also think the proportions of the bay are different from the proportions in the front, so you're not copying it. You're kind of, it's a nod to the bay in the front without being a replica, which suggests it's not, copying. It's modern.
It's meant to be secondary to it. I think that's a good description of it, where, we don't have all of the intricate detail trim, but it pulls in some of the proportions, the roof line and others. So I would agree with that it's meant to pick up on some of the elements of it, I without matching it exactly.
But yes, it's true. That's normally something, I agree, Kristen, that,
Yeah, we shouldn't be introducing historical
right.
elements, but
Um,
preserve historic ones.
I would say given my comments before, this side of the house has been screwed around with so many times. It's hard to know what would be original and what wouldn't, and what would be there. I'm on the borderline with you, Kristen, but in my own mind, I'd let it pass. But I understand where you're coming from.
I agree.
I just have a question. What did it look like before? Since I didn't see that part of it.
Was it two windows?
This is
Two windows.
right
Okay.
here. It's actually a triple. This is two of a three. It's just a three-ganged double hung.
Mhm.
It's not quite centered under the windows above. It's similar style to the other windows in kind of the mansard age of the home.
Melinda, were you talking about the previous design?
Yes, that's what I was curious about, because I didn't see that part of it, the
It's-
house today.
This is the elevation right here.
Okay,
No,
thank you.
the previous design you had last time.
Oh,
You
I'm
had that.
sorry. The previous design we had, it was replacing the three windows with a sliding door.
And a stair on that side as well.
Correct. So it was a sliding door and a stair. It was to the main egress out of kind of the living space to the backyard.
Right, I'm more interested
There
in
is
what-
three windows.
I'm sorry, you were just cutting out there. Melinda, what was
What
So
there
I-
currently on the building is three windows.
currently on the building is three windows, and
Okay.
we were proposing the doors originally. And then, the feedback was that this felt not elevated enough. And so that's where we look to change back to windows, not having the door, not having the deck, the steps, but trying to tie in some of the, character and elements of the home and, the charm.
Okay.
And if you go back to the slide or the screen you had just before this with the 6 pictures on it showing the bay.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Because, Kristen, if you look down on the lower right-hand side, which would be number 6 there,
Yeah.
that's to my eye representative of what one sees from the street at this point, and the additional bay that's going in there isn't nearly as visible as it seems from any public way when you look at it.
Right. But what's the
as,
point?
as when you're looking at it directly. I understand completely what you're saying. I'm just suggesting there might be a little small bit of solace in knowing that it's more backyard than front yard.
I would also
and
agree with Melinda's point that you don't want to introduce something that's going to mislead people historically. But I think the new bay that they're proposing is really not historical at all. It doesn't have shutters. It doesn't have the same proportions of, rectangular panels. So it is actually quite modern, but it blends and it doesn't jar. But I agree that you don't want to be misleading people in the future.
Yeah, I mean, the idea is you're not creating a pastiche of
Yeah.
historic structure.
On a house full of prestige though, so, okay, moving on to landscaping, I think,
Okay.
if there are any more comments on the south elevation. Okay,
Okay.
I would like to share my screen if possible.
Yes.
Okay, I am Wesley Worth with Thomas Worth Associates. So we have a couple changed plans. From a kind of spatial point of view, they're very similar. The objective is to create a cottage garden in the front of the Gothic portion of the building, and to enclose that with some kind of enclosure. We have two options. We have a stone wall option, which is pictured here. And in this case, there are a series of granite piers, gate piers, and end piers, and then wooden gates. And in keeping with the scale and of the cottage, it's a very low wall, about 30 inches. It would be antique or historic handmade fieldstone wall. There may be some mortar inside, but it would be what we call deep break joints, so you wouldn't see any visible mortar. The granite piers in our prior submission were more carved and more elaborate. And we did that because we were trying to reflect some of the architectural detail of the building. But in this case, we simplified to try to make it more cottagey and more simple. And they're just rectangular, split-faced piers with stone wall between and wooden gates. And as we had before, large slabs of natural cleft bluestone for a side entrance and a front entrance, a newer and slightly larger stoop step stone that gets you in here, which would also be kind of a hand-hewn, antique, salvaged chunk of granite, a little wider. You can see the old one is slightly smaller. This is the to the dimension of the columns. And then these two trellis structures, which I will show. And then in addition, a natural stepping stone pathway which leads all the way around to the back and to a rear terrace. And the rear terrace is very hard to see from the street, but I'll just kind of reiterate what the intention is there. If you remember from the elevations of the architectural plans, there's an existing deck that comes off like this and is very narrow and essentially just at the elevation of the first floor, which is about 6 feet higher than the average grade over here. And what we've done is, actually I have a slide of that. This is the existing deck right here. And there's you come out right here and then you walk down a set of stairs to a bluestone terrace here. This is like a very large drop-off, so what we're attempted to do is to mitigate the difference here and install a natural terrace that's touching the ground at a mid-level. So you step down, I'll go back to the slide. So you come out onto a landing, down a few steps to this terrace, which is on fill, and then there's a sloped bank here, which slopes down about 3.5 feet in all directions. Not here. This is at level. and it's planted, very heavily planted. So you're really sitting in the middle of a garden here. The other thing that's very important to mention about the front, and this is actually the driving
Sorry.
factor, is that it was a privet hedge and lawn, and now the intention is to make it a garden, flowering, perennial garden, trees, shrubs, not too many trees, maybe perhaps a tree over here, but shrubs and perennials. And I can show some elevations. This is the these are the trellis structures that we're proposing. 1x2 cedar, very simple, and used with the spacer to hold it off the building so that the vines stay on the trellis and do not get on the building in any way. This shows a 30-inch wall. These are the granite piers we're proposing. This is the a maintenance access. It's really the only way that a truck can get into the backyard unless they go on the neighbor's property. So this is how all service happens, because there's no way to get through here, and the property line is right here where the barn is. So that's the access. And then we're also proposing a wrought iron arch, which comes out of the center of the two gate piers and has a copper lantern hanging from the front. And this picks up on some of the detail of the leaf pattern on the gable ends of the Gothic house. It would be something like a 1-inch by 1-inch wrought iron bar, solid bar with a kind of hand hammered leaf design at the top. I think that's it. Alternatively, we have a version of the same thing, but instead of stone wall, it's a fence. So it has the same granite pier configuration, but there's a fence that runs from here to here, here to here, and here to here, with the same gate, 3 gates. This is that service access I was talking about. And that would look something like this. Again, it's a very low fence, a lot lower than a typical garden fence, which might be 3 to 3.5 to even 4 feet. This is 30 inches high. So again, it's a tip of the hat to the scale of the house and to the cottage style. Same arch here. And then lastly, we're proposing a sound mitigation fence on the side property line in both schemes, which you can see here. It runs right on the property line. It's about 50 feet. And the reason is that back here, the traffic coming to and from, coming along Monument Street slides through this way here. And it was quite striking this summer when we were, or this fall when I was out there kind of working on the project. We were sitting on the back deck and we noticed a lot of traffic noise. So this is an effort, and I'm well aware that this is, it could be seen as something fairly imposing on the street, but it's really an effort to improve the quality of the landscape experience here. I would consider or suggest that if it feels like a problem to have the wooden fence start right away, the low stone wall could go back a section, and the wooden fence could continue at the latter part, so that at least from the street or from the sort of oblique angle, you don't see a taller fence. So I think this is potentially a compromise so that there is some sound mitigation, but at the same time not a sort of fence that obscures the view in. I would also say that there is an existing lilac hedge here that is very significant, as well as a very large arborvitae here, and then a spruce tree right here, all of which are proposed to stay. The lilacs will be reestablished. So it is very hard to see into the house, the lot here, even now in the winter time, but when the lilacs are in bloom, there's very little view, and the arborvitae is extremely dense and all the way down to the ground. Also, in both of these cases, the wall turns the corner and comes up to where the house porch ends. You can see the wooden trellis here, and the gate. And then this is an existing stone wall that stays in place. It's a raised plant bed against the house. And then here is the same iteration of the fenced version. And let's see what else. Lighting. So I will do our lighting and then we can visit the rest of it. So
Okay, can we stop and look at the landscape before we go on to lighting?
Sure thing.
What is the material of the fence that you have in front? Is that wood or is it metal?
Wood, cedar.
It's cedar.
Mhm.
My feeling is, and I like the fence better than the wall because I think it goes better with the cottage. I would like just a plain, good old-fashioned picket fence myself, and nothing that's too innovative there. I think would be better. And I do not like the archway with the lantern. We don't allow posts. Well, we don't. We usually do not allow post lights in a situation like this. So this is a modified form of that. So I think a simple picket fence along there would be perfect for that house.
Well,
Yes,
would
in
you call,
go on, Les.
I would call this, I mean, we call it a low picket fence. And
It
this
is. It just the design. Isn't the design? Didn't you say the design of it was based on something on the house? So it's not a normal, not a traditional picket fence, not normal traditional picket fence, but it has a different design to it.
No, I would call this about as traditional as you can get. I mean, you have to decide how to finish the tops of the pickets. So we just elected to make the tops an arch, which mimic one of the details over one of the windows on the house. So I mean, I would say this is about as simple a picket fence as you can. It's 2 rails and pickets.
Okay, thanks.
Dennis, it does have a lot of stone piers, large stone piers, which I think makes it atypical from a light picket fence.
Yeah, I was going to let that go at this point, but I'd rather see that to be them to be wood rather than granite. But I'm not going to get hung up on it.
Well, there are as you can see, the stone piers only articulate the ends. There are wooden piers here, 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 here. So these are long runs of just wood.
And the stone piers are a foot square? Is that what I'm
Yes.
saying?
12 by 12. 3 foot height, 3 foot out of the ground.
So what Dennis was referring to is that in the Concord's HGC guidelines, pole-mounted lights, post-mounted lights, which is what we would consider the arch, are generally discouraged for a couple of reasons. And so I'm not sure if this one would, be able to pass. And while I'm at it, I'll also mention with regards to the sound fence, the commission generally opposes structures like this because the concept of open space is also part of our charge. I know you mentioned perhaps moving it back a segment. How long would that be?
Well, it could be in the example that I showed here. It was one approximate 8 foot section.
Mm-hmm.
It could be 16, but I mean the intention is really we were out there today trying to talk with the traffic, and it's quite a challenge. So
it's true, except traffic noise isn't really part of our.
I mean, this is the sort of most peaceful and place to relax, and by fortifying this edge, it really does a lot to all the cars here. There's no interference from the traffic that's coming from the north down. but this southern traffic does, the noise just funnels right through. So
There's, yeah, Kate, the guidelines are pretty darn clear on
Pretty
fencing,
clear.
that you have to be remote from public view to consider even a 5-foot fence. Everything else should be 42 inches. There's no way we can approve this fence in this location.
May I, so I'd suggest that we shouldn't be thinking of it as a fence, we should be thinking of it as a wall. Frankly, that's what it is.
It's still the same thing. It's
Oh,
still,
no, I know, but
I mean, the guidelines apply regardless. I mean,
yeah, no, I'm not suggesting that
fences should be
excuses
located
that
where
I'm
they have
making.
minimal
I'm-
visual impact from public streets, ways, or places. Wherever fences are located, care should be taken that they do not create a visual barrier. You know, that this does not clear those hurdles. You know, certainly not 6 feet, which is unusual in the district. And usually, I think the only ones I can think of that have been 6 feet that we've approved have been fences in the backyards of properties that run alongside the commuter line, which I would imagine is probably noisier. But you know, in terms of maybe having a segment moved back, I'm not sure how, you know, what other commissioners might feel about that. But our guidelines really do not allow us to approve something like this.
Standing out there this morning, that whole sideline is very visible from the neighbors and from the sidewalk. Back 60 feet at least, past it into that tall arborvitae.
yeah, the arborvitae
So
right here.
So I don't know how, I don't think we can approve any length of that as it's shown. It's in public way.
I'd like to say a couple things. When I say wall, that's not to excuse it from regulation. That's because I consider it to be more imposing as a wall than were a fence. And if anything, it's more subject to. And as far as noise goes, you know, if I'm out in my yard and a truck goes by, I hear it. And I think most of us are, as Concordians, living on roads that have traffic noise. That's kind of the way that it is. I also don't think that, I know we had a conversation this morning. I don't think that length of fence/wall is going to make a huge difference in abating the traffic noise in the back there. And it's, to my eye and understanding, is a pretty indefensible trade-off for its visual impact versus its
Well,
potential.
even if it did,
Yeah, it's just
noise
wrong.
is not in our purview, but sightlines are.
Yeah, I understand.
So I think let's just kind
What
of,
are the evergreens you're backing it with on the house side?
But these are not evergreens. This would be a restoration of the lilacs. So this is a flowering ornamental shrub. And this is a mass of existing very large arborvitae. And then there are other arborvitaes that exist over here. One of them is sitting out here, and we're just proposing sliding it back a few feet. But other
Might
than
I
that, they all
suggest that you
stay.
continue the line densely planted arborvitae, which would probably have the same impact on silencing the noise as the
Oh.
fence the
No.
fence would have.
I
Actually,
agree.
well, I mean, we've done quite a few acoustical studies that the arborvitaes, or any tree for that matter, don't do anything to mitigate the traffic noise. They obliterate the view, which has some impact, but no. A fence, if it's designed to mitigate sound, does have some impact, but I understand the aesthetic concerns here. If it were, just in case the client is still interested in some mitigation, if it were the same 30-inch low stone wall, how would that sit with the commission?
a wall along that border.
Mhm.
There's, you know, I don't see any, I mean, there's no, you know, kind of nothing in the guidelines that exclude that or preclude that.
I mean,
It's
I
an
guess we're I mean, I also agree with Dennis that, I mean, I think we've all said from the beginning, less is more on this, and I think a simple picket fence in the front is in keeping with the house and not the heavy stone barrier, and definitely not the arch, which has no precedent.
Oh, wait,
Um,
Tim, I think Wes was saying instead of the sound wall.
Yeah, I know. I'm
Oh.
coming around to that. I'm just
Okay.
saying, so if the commission is leaning towards which I hope we are, leaning towards a wood fence, simpler wood fence, and then switching it to stone, that's a, to go down a 30-inch stone wall, which if, I've done enough acoustics in my career to know that a 30-inch stone wall is going to do kind of very little. It's mass, but it's very low. So is it going to change anything for the backyard? So, and again, we're not here to make decisions on acoustics. So it'd come down to a visual question.
I
Is it
understand.
appropriate for the wood fence to, if we're approving a wood fence to go along and then turn into a stone fence? What would be the reasoning that we would approve that? I don't know what it would be.
The only reason I'm asking is just because it provides, there's a possibility it will provide some sound mitigation, but again, it may be one of diminishing returns, and it may not even be worth it for the client to pursue that course. But I just thought I'd ask.
Mhm. Other questions from commissioners?
I'd just like to say that in all fairness, when they bought this house, they knew they were on a very busy road and there was gonna be traffic. If they wanted to leave farther out and have, 4 or 5 acres, it'd be different, but, I think all the people who've had a lot of experience are saying, you're not gonna get it quiet, period. And maybe you want to put a water, thing in, feature in the off of the terrace or whatever. I think the terrace is in a terrific, it's almost like a sunken garden there. It is well placed. I think that's a good decision. I actually sort of like the idea of a stone wall in front, but everybody else likes the fence better, so that's fine. And I think everybody's in agreement that the wrought iron, with the light above it, there's no question that that's not really a good idea for a historic district. So,
Walter, did you have any questions about the trellises that came up earlier when we were, it was
Yeah,
presented? Actually.
if we're looking at them as landscaping, that's fine, but they're attached to the structure, and to say that there's no other addition on the front of the house other than the gutter is a little bit misleading. Is it landscaping if it's a wooden structure that goes up the sides of the house there, or is it quasi-architectural? To me, it's quasi-architectural, but I'm 6 of one, half a dozen. Were it me, I wouldn't put them there because I think visually it's jarring and detracts from, again, the charm of the building overall. You already have leaf detail on a fairly small, delicate scale in a lot of places architecturally on the house. So putting that up on the sides there, I find visually jarring. I'm not a big fan, but there's my 2 cents.
I agree with Melinda. I think there's something very disappearing about the stone wall, where when there's a cottage garden, the fence is a little more distracting to me. But again, it's either one I think is appropriate. But if you did the picket fence, would it be natural wood, white, the color of the house?
Undecided, but I think that in discussion today, we were thinking that it would be the color matching either the trim or the body color of the house.
I mean, I think in general, the house is so magnificently compelling as an object. You just don't want to distract from it at all. That should be the primary guiding force, is don't pull the attention away from such a marvelous structure,
I also like the stone wall, and I meant only in the front, not going down the side, because there's that little stone wall on the side of the driveway there. So I just feel like it's a nice look all the way around. And I agree, I think the fence in some locations would be great, but this, I feel like it's almost making it too cutesy. And, anyways, that's my thought.
Especially if the stone wall is naturally hewn old stones in a dry stone wall pattern. I mean, that's nice.
Would they be New England rounds or like a veneer?
But definitely not a veneer, a real mason-built historic New England wall.
I just wonder, is that too formal for the kind of decorative woodwork?
Um, I mean,
I think it would be definitely decorative because stone walls were built to take stones out of fields. They were
Yeah, those are more casual.
they were later put up for decorative reasons. So I don't know, that's why I was sticking with the picket fence. It also gives some variety along the street. There are other picket fences further down, but I
There's
think
one across the street.
right. But I think which is more formal because it's on top of a granite wall, right? Isn't there?
yes.
Right, in front of a Greek revival house,
Right,
yeah.
yeah. Anyway, yeah, I'm not absolutely adverse to the stone wall. I prefer the picket, but that's me.
I would say,
This-
my take is that after the a review of the last meeting and thinking on this for a couple weeks, that the stone wall is it doesn't call attention to itself. It doesn't compete with the sort of wooden charm and architectural detail of the house. And it is the simple, most basic kind of landscape feature of our region because the stones come out of the ground and they were put to use. And and it's very low. I think it really will, in a lot of ways, disappear, and it will provide a platform on which you really get to appreciate the house and the cottage garden that is being created behind the wall and the house. And I think the picket will function similarly just because of the nature of the space that it's forming, but it will be more transparent, and it definitely has, as evident in the elevation, it just has so much more detail, and it has a lot of energy, and a lot more energy than the stone wall has. So that's my take on it.
Now we're,
Leslie, there's stone walls across the street. There are a lot of hewn stones,
This is true.
quarried stones, large ones, right around that area.
Yeah.
Are you proposing um, mortarless fieldstone wall,
Well,
or are you proposing more hewn, crafted stone wall?
the hewn walls are actually quite hard to build at this stage. You don't see them very often because it's art that has disappeared largely. People do build walls out of rectangular stone, but those tend to be kind of fakes of the original. What I was anticipating is there's a quarry that or it's actually just hand collected field stones from Barry, Mass. And we have some really good artisan masons, and they build what I call old-fashioned New England fieldstone walls, which are dry laid for the most part. Um, a good mason can take any pile of stones and do make nice work of it. They tend to, some of our guidelines are use larger stones on top, so that there's a consistent covered stone that covers the full 16-inch width of the wall. No small stones on top, which also avoids any visible mortar on the top. Usually very large base stones that go into the ground, and then a sort of middle layer that glues the top and the bottom together. And aside from that, a lot of it, not these sort of, I would call like generic canned walls that you see popping up in subdivisions all over the place, which is the result of buying stones from a commercial masonry yards, and who knows where, stones often come from Connecticut or something, and they tend to be very round, and you get these kind of like basketballs sort of fit together with mortar joints. Nothing like that at all. So something that I think would look like you would really not be able to tell that it wasn't there for the last 200 years when it was done.
Okay, thank you. And the stone wall you're proposing is 30 inches high and the piers are 36, is that
That's
right?
correct. That is correct. And the piers are 12 by 12, which is, I mean, it may sound like a lot, but it's not a very large pier. And in this case, if it is a stone wall, the piers would actually be, the stone wall has to be a certain depth, just because the nature of you want to be able to put a stone on the face of the wall and a stone on the back of the wall. So 16 inches is kind of a minimal depth. So in this case, the piers would be 12 inches visible from the street, but 16 inches deep, so that they hold the body of the wall.
Why would you keep the 12-inch piers and then if you were using picket?
Because it's a historic detail, and it also just makes sense from a practical standpoint. The granite was put up because it never rots, and every time you install a wooden fence post, it has a lifespan. So this was a compromise, but at least you don't have to replace all the posts. You just have to replace some of the posts.
Oh, no, I don't mind that they're granite. I mean that they're 12 by 12.
Oh, why
You
did
know,
I pick 12 by 12?
Yeah, why are they 12 by 12 if you're using picket and not more like 6 by 6?
Why can't it be more delicate with picket?
Oh, I mean, it certainly could be. It just, I mean, I personally feel that I know that 7-inch piers are a kind of historic number for some reason. I just like the solidity, particularly at the corner around the driveway, which is kind of where this fence is most visible over here, where it actually makes the bend. And then I just went with the program and just kept them all 12 inches. I just like the solid feel of that. And I think in the larger scale of the landscape, 12 inches actually is pretty de minimis. It doesn't feel that large.
There are two gates on this proposal, one for the backyard gate and then one for the front door gate.
Yep.
Are they wood in the picket fence? But what would they and what would they be if it was a stone wall?
They would be wood. So there they are as the wood version, and here it is with this stone version. So
those are both wooden gates, not
That-
iron.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
It would be the similar picket, but only, confined to the gate. And then around the corner as well. Here.
All right, so we're coming up on an hour on this. So I know there were a lot of details to cover. So perhaps let's start wrapping it up and getting it a motion into shape. We were given two options for the front fence. And so does it make sense for the commissioners to kind of have a mini vote on which to decide on that so that we can then put forward the rest of the motion,
I think that makes sense.
right? So, for,
So Kate, sorry,
yes,
what about public comments? We did receive something in the office today. Should I? When
so,
you, go ahead.
I'm not sure if public comment. I mean, I guess we can hear public comment about the fence. What I'm trying to do, Ann, is for us to just be able to dictate the fence
Mhm.
and then put that into a motion. Oh, right, I can't do a motion anyway without public comment. You're right. Okay, yes. Public comment, please. If
Right,
there's
so
any.
I do have one, and it does relate to the fence. So it was Joellen O'Neill of 26 Monroe Place. She would choose a picket fence over the other fence styles because of the transparency. That's all she wanted to say.
Oh, thank you.
That's
Okay.
all. Okay.
Okay, that's good. Anyone
you.
else? Okay, well, that's very helpful. All right,
Okay,
yes.
sorry, don't want to confuse things, but I do have a comment on the stone wall.
Mm-hmm.
It's proposed as 30 inches And if you look at the elevation where it's shown, it's creeping up higher than the sill of the windows beyond. It just
Oh.
strikes me, if it's a subtle wall that we're talking about, that's like a border to this garden, and it's 30 inches maybe low, but it's still a high wall for this house, I think. So I would suggest that another consideration is to take the wall down 6 inches to a 24-inch wall that you can plant against, but not have it quite so high for this house. And I'm asking the same question would be on the piers: is, could the wall and the piers all be the same level? And we see this where we've seen it quite a bit over the last few years, where piers are getting bigger, stone piers are getting bigger and taller. There's just general sense, and we're always trying to control the size of these. It's a bit fashionable, right? So 12-inch pier is a big pier, and having it stick up is a sort of a proud gesture. So I just am, because I'm a little bit torn on stone. I'm hearing what Wesley said, and I'm reconsidering here, but whether stone or picket myself. But if it's stone, if we're talking about less, why not less height? What is the argument for a 30-inch wall versus a 24-inch wall, or a 36-inch pier versus a 24-inch pier? Why? Those are things that call attention to the wall when we're really trying to say, okay, if it's a stone wall, it's quiet, 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 very quiet, low, not high piers. So that's my.
No, that's good. Thank you, Tim. Wesley, do you want to
Very
respond?
quickly, I would just say that the vantage point of this elevation is a little, I mean, your eye is very seldom going to be at 24 inches. And even in a car, you will see over the wall to and I would say see the full body of the window and even the porch itself. Certainly walking down
I
the
understand that.
sidewalks.
I'm just using that as to illustrate to people that it does 30 inches, even though it's low, is not what I wouldn't consider a low wall per se.
Yeah. And the piers, they're all 12 inches? No.
Yeah.
Just the ones in the gates. Well, yeah, they're all 12 inches.
Well, they're not. So this is 16 by, we put 16 by 16 here because if in the case of the wall, there's a 16-inch wall bumping into it this way, and then the 16-inch wall has to come out of it the other way. But this is 12 visible here, but 16 deep, 12 by 16. And it's just a matter of function. When you build the wall, that's what you need.
And we have had lots of stone walls that are 16 inches wide that end on smaller piers that are not the same depth as the wall. So you
Yes,
can do that.
you can do that, but then the stone has to hang around and it's exposed because you can't skinny the stone at the wall. So
Right.
I mean, it tends to be a fairly awkward detail, but yes, it can be done.
It's all over Concord.
Believe me, I've seen it.
All right, well, so stone wall people. I think what Tim is pointing out is that although it's quiet, it's more mass. Just to keep that in mind. So shall we go back to our mini vote first of stone or picket fence? And yeah, I think on this one, should we hear from everybody?
Or none is an option as well, right? Not saying it has to be, but.
I have a question. Would it
Sure.
be possible to see the photograph of the house from the front? And does it show where the street is? I'm just a little, that's not it.
There it is.
Oh, okay, so there is quite a good distance.
Yes.
It's deceptive.
Yeah, it's deceptive. It's
Yeah,
close.
it's deceptive. It's not that deep at all.
Well,
Actually, that's why I was glad I was at the site visit this morning, because I was
could see from the
thinking
plan.
exactly that.
It's about 20 feet from the wall to the porch.
Okay.
And then there's about a 10, maybe the sidewalk is about 7 or 8 feet, 3 feet of plants and 5 feet of sidewalk to the road.
Do we know how tall those shrubs are?
3 feet, probably more, 3.5 feet. Let me go back to that picture.
Actually, sorry, we still need to review lighting.
Right.
So,
Once we get the wall dealt with.
okay, yeah, all right, let's finish this wall. Let's finish the wall. So then can do lighting, go through lighting, and then get to a motion. Okay, wall. Let's see, can we go around and, everyone tell me what they think of, I'll start with you, Walter, of, picket fence or stone wall.
I really dislike the picket fence, and I think the stone wall, if it is sympathetic and looks like it's been there for 200 years, is a much better option.
Okay. Thank you. Dennis?
I'm a picket person.
Okay. Let's see, moving down here. Tim?
I agree with Walter on the stone, but I'd like to see the wall 6 inches lower and the piers lower.
Wait, Walter, I thought you said picket fence.
No, he said.
I said I despised the picket fence.
Oh, do you started with pickets, I just heard a picket,
I
okay.
think the picket fence is too busy by 75%, and the considering the precedent being what's across the street, I was asking Anne about that earlier. She was going to see when that actually went in, but that may be a fairly recent fence that was put in as well.
Okay, and Tim, you are in the Walter camp of you wanting it to look really old.
Yes.
Melinda?
I prefer the stone wall for sure, and I prefer a lower, the 24-inch. Although I would vote for stone, period. So
Okay, prefers 24. Tim, do you prefer 24 inches?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And Lewis, what do you
I'm
think?
not voting, but I definitely prefer the stone. Lower the better, but it's not a deal breaker to have a higher.
Okay, also
And
prefers.
it's impressive to have the possibility of a really well-built, hand-collected antique stone wall, because there's so many horrible stone walls everywhere. It's nice to know that we might get a good one. You know?
Oh, well, that's good. Kristen, your thoughts?
Stone wall lower.
Okay.
Also the piers lower and smaller.
And smaller, like, what do you think, like 8 inches?
Smaller footprint. So those 16-inch ones are too big.
Uh-huh. Smaller piers. Okay, and is that everybody? And I was a fence person, now I will join Dennis as a picket person, but we are heavily outnumbered, Dennis, by stone people. So,
I'm not hung up on either one. I have
yeah,
no
same
clue.
here. No, I actually agree with, everyone made good points. So, all right, I've got those down. Let's move on to lighting, a lighting review, and then start to wrap up.
Okay, I will be very quick here. We are proposing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ground lights, which I will show cut sheets of, and 1, 2, 3, 4 lights on the granite piers, which are flush mounted lights, which I'll show cut sheets of just as wayfinding to wayfind the driveway. This is out, this is the arch, and then 1 light in the wall just to get around the corner here. And this is what they look like. This is the nature of the stone pier, the light on the granite pier. It's a flush mount brass fixture like this that sits on the stone. Here's I sent the photometrics of it to you all. And this is the path light. Is a copper and bronze, also completely shrouded. This is called a Hunza border light. This is the stainless steel version, but it would be bronze, which is SBZ.
Mhm.
Like that. And this is the light that would be on the wall like this as well.
And how many of those did you say? Are they on the plan?
Where are they
1, 2,
again
3,
on the
4,
plan?
5 of the path lights, and then 5 of the surface mounted lights that sit on the piers and on the wall.
There other site lighting? Is there other site lighting?
No.
Well, they're
There's
lights
two-
over the garage
What about the
door.
barn?
Yes.
Yeah.
There, excuse me, there is additional lighting on the building that I can show you as
Oh,
well.
okay.
But
All right.
correct, this is like in the landscape. Mhm.
Okay.
Let
So
me
what,
ask one more question about the landscape.
Mm.
If we're doing away with the archway, do you want any lights on any of those low lights on either side of the entry, or?
I think that would be very nice to have light, the low lights on the end piers facing in, like we have here.
Mhm. So those two face in on the north elevation by
Yes.
the
So
step.
this is out,
That
out,
out.
out, in.
Mhm.
And then this marks the pathway, and this would be in.
And how many
So
feet
there's-
apart are the piers on the north? Yeah, right there between what's the distance? Yeah.
I think that this is about 8 feet, and this is
Oh,
probably
wow.
about 6 feet.
Okay. All right. All right. More
This
than.
is 20 feet total.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
6, 4, and 8, maybe even a little more.
Okay. That makes sense. Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right.
How high are they mounted?
Well, if they're, I mean, if they would probably be at about, if it's a 36-inch pier, they would be at least 6 inches below the top, so at 30 inches. But if it's a 30-inch pier, if we're knocking everything down 6 inches, it would probably be at 24.
And the 4 on the north side, are they all facing the driveway, did you say?
Three are facing the driveway. This on the corner, this here, the end pier, and then this is very low. This is in a 1-foot high existing stone wall right here.
Yeah.
And and then these are facing in.
Facing in meaning facing each other?
Yes,
So they're mounted on the piers but facing each other.
that's correct.
And then when you come in, you've got the 6 low.
5. 1, 2,
5.
3, 4, 5. Yeah.
Okay. I'll reserve my comments till later, I guess.
Okay.
Okay,
Unless we are later.
shall I stop sharing so Carrie can share the
Well,
barn?
yeah, Tim, are your comments, so the lighting's 2 parts. Carrie's got her part for the building.
Yeah, we should do the architectural. I forgot about that. Go ahead.
Okay. Carrie, back to you, please.
Okay, thank you. On the building, so we have 3 different styles of lights that we have throughout. Similar to Wes, I can show you cut sheets, but just want to orient you to what we have. Under the proposed at this connector, there is a kind of a covered landing step that you step up to. So we are proposing 2 recessed, 4-inch recessed underneath that overhang. The second style is a wall sconce. We are proposing to swap out. There's an existing wall sconce at the front door. We are proposing to swap that out, and then we have 1, 2, 3 in the back. This one is not at all visible. These are potentially, depending on the view of if this portion of the connector was visible, those are like a wall lantern sconce I will show you. And then the third style are the 2 barn fixtures, carriage house style gooseneck over the garage doors. So the 4-inch aperture recessed is this fixture right here. It is a dark sky compliant downlight, small high regress recessed fixture. The Second is, this is the wall sconce that we're proposing. So again, one is at the front door, and I can show you the existing that's there now. There's also an existing at that side door that we're getting rid of, so we would be getting rid of the light fixture there. And then this would be going on the back of the connector as well. And then this is the proposed fixture for the carriage house over the garage doors. You know, aiming to be kind of traditional carriage house fixture. You know, we know very originally there were not any, but we are aiming to keep, you know, the character of it while providing lighting in a place where there isn't any now. So partly aesthetics, partly also function. The photos are a bit hard to see here. There's this one wall sconce here that we're looking to replace. And again, this is the one that we'd be getting rid of on the driveway side of the home. I would imagine there are questions and feedback, so I'm happy to answer that on the lighting.
I didn't catch on the tear sheet for the gooseneck barn fixtures, what the lumens, let's see, there we go. Okay, wattage, okay. We generally ask not to exceed 40 watts,
Okay.
but that one doesn't go much higher anyway, and lumen output. Okay, yeah, all right, great. Thank you.
Gary, those wall sconces, the one that's on the front door, are those the same ones that are going around by the terrace?
Correct. So the again, these two squares are just the recessed. They're numbered just to kind of say type. So this one at the front is kind of a number 2. That's the wall sconce, as well as the one at the door to the back terrace, and then flanking these doors as well, for egress, you know, at the doors to provide lighting there.
Are those fixtures dark sky compliant?
They are. That was, you know, we went through, they're the dark sky compliant, you know, certified website. That was part of the criteria.
Did you highlight in blue that little passage for us? Did you do that?
We did.
Thank you.
I mean, I'd say that
2022, we redesigned our roof passage wall lantern to be
I
dark
can
sky
send the
compliant.
link. They're you know, hard to come by, but this company makes them, and
Yeah.
felt that they were aesthetically, you know, fitting.
So actually, my name is Mariana. I'm with Catalano as well. It was helpful to have a link to all the dark sky compliant light fixtures on your website. So that's actually where we found it. But the
great.
wording was kind of hidden in there. So we just wanted to kind of highlight it.
Thank you.
And this would
Okay.
go in place to the front door fixture that's there now, correct?
Correct.
Seems wider. Is there enough space for it there?
There is. We can you know,
hard to
we'll
see
double
on
check
this.
again, but yeah, it's right here.
Right there. Okay.
Okay. All right, well, that seems pretty straightforward. Any questions from the commissioners?
On the house or all the lighting?
The lighting.
The lighting. I'll start. I think the house is pretty, the architecture lights on the house seem to be pretty quiet, but I do have concerns about the barn lights. I think those overhead door lights are just going to fundamentally change the look of that barn. And so I understand, you know, not that we're here to solve safety and lighting issues, but what other ways could you do it that doesn't have that kind of, we've seen that fixture a lot over the last 30 years of barn architecture, you know, new barn architecture. So I question those. I think, you know, maybe it's a low wall light that's 3 feet that flanks the doors. I don't know, but it's just something that doesn't really change the nature of that barn at night. That would be my concern on the house lights. On the landscaping lights, there just seems to be an enormous cluster of lights in this one path. And the lights on the posts, I just don't think we can approve those because they are lights on posts, and we fundamentally don't like lights on posts. We try to avoid that at all costs, whether they're pointing in or out. So I'm just wondering, why is there a cluster of 9 lights on this one little path? I know it's probably for visitors, but you know, I think there has to be a toning down of that amount of light shining into the driveway. Maybe there's a couple of small lights tucked along the walkway to get you to the front path, and then there's a light at the front door, but it just seems very excessive to me to have so many fixtures clustered in one quadrant that what I'm sure will be a very nice front yard. So those are my comments on lighting.
I would say that and you were talking about the lights as post lights, and technically you're right, they're on a post, but I consider them more bollard lights, which we do like. And because they're very low on the post itself, and it could be if we had a metal post with the bollard, we approve those. So I don't see that as any different when it comes to being on the granite pier. But I do agree with you, that's a lot of light in that one space.
Yeah, I mean,
I
it's
will
a-
say
it-
that they're 1 watt. There's a version of each light that's 1 watt or 2 watts. So they're very subtle lights. They're intentionally chosen to be subtle, and the spacing is also a function of the very low output that each of these fixture has, and we've used them numerous times before. So I would say that this is the appropriate spacing. They can certainly be spaced out wider, but then it's harder to wayfind.
Wesley, how low could they reasonably be installed on the piers? I mean, because our
Think-
guidelines do allow for walkways
Yeah,
to be
I mean,
illuminated.
I think a normal, the normal, what I call the path light, which is the freestanding,
Mm-hmm,
is about 18 inches high. It could be as low as 12, but obviously the taller it is, the sort of wider the plume of light.
mm-hmm.
So I would say average of 8, 15 might be a good average there. It's adjustable in the field.
Okay,
And same thing with the pier lights. I think anything less than 18 on the pier is probably a diminishing return.
mm-hmm,
But it could be yeah, I mean, I would say 18 would be minimal,
mm-hmm.
which would be about right for a 24-inch pier. Well, no, we're saying 30-inch pier. 18 would be about halfway.
Yeah, I don't think I mean, since we do approve bollard lights, then I don't think we typically see them more than 18 inches tall. Does that sound about right to the other commissioners? Dennis,
Sounds about right.
right? So I mean, I think we could, endorse that. Any other question? Tim, did you get your questions answered? Do you have?
Yeah, I just, having presented my own house in front of historic district on lighting and how careful they were on 2 little tiny bollard lights. I'm sensitive to this.
How tall were your bollards?
So I asked the question, like, it's, to me, it's odd to put a light on the face of a stone pier shining out. If they were tucked in a way that you didn't see the source
Mhm.
from the sidewalk, so that there's a light on the pier closest to the street, but pointing away from the street. And and then a few landscape lights that are pointing towards the house and not, so when you're coming into town, you're not seeing, I know these are very low wattage, but they are dots of light that will appear. So I think that the concealment of these lights so that you're not actually seeing the fixture from the street would be desirable.
Wes, could you go back to the screen, please, with the lights on the corner on the piers so we can see them? Because it's true, Tim makes a point that
Oops,
for
here we go.
pole mounted lights, sorry, this
Okay, so this
drawing.
this is another job we did in Weston that shows. I think these are 4-foot high piers, and the light is probably at about. But this is the character of the light, and
Mhm.
it casts. It's a bronze light, so it has a very warm glow, similar to what you see here.
Mhm.
It really blends in with the stone, and it is not it's the light source is concealed, so you're right, it is a point of light, but you don't actually see the source of the light. And I'm very particular about lighting. I mean, this is a go-to for us because it's so organic, and
Mhm.
the quality of the light that it makes is so subtle. And I would say the very same for this particular light. These were both made by the same company, Hansa. It's bronze. It has an adjustable, completely covered shroud. It casts a very discreet, warm plume of light at its base, and nothing more. You really don't see it otherwise. So these are very carefully selected, not to be bright, not to be jarring, but to be very subtle.
And then would you just bounce us back to the
Here.
design, the drawing? Yeah. So Tim, the pier that's at the corner of the driveway and Monument, that light faces,
This way, out.
Faces to the driveway.
Right.
faces
So
to the driveway.
So there are really two. The intent is for these 3 lights to illuminate the wayfinding lights, and then this set of lights to get you to the front door.
So you could do without that one on the corner. Because one of
Yeah.
our guidelines in lighting is to very sparingly illuminate public space. And that's what that does,
Yes.
right? I mean, that's on the
Good.
sidewalk.
Mhm.
Wes, I wonder also, could those lights be, rather than be on a granite pier, can they be in the stone wall themselves, which would blend better?
They could. I mean, I think it's fairly it's a very unobtrusive because it's bronze. I mean, it tends to look a little bit like the stone, but yeah, it could be part of the wall as well. I mean, I think from a safety perspective, it's not a bad idea to have a light on the corner pier where cars will be coming and going. But if it's, if it's seen as a public, I don't know, nuisance, then
But just a few inches over would be on a stone wall, wouldn't it?
this is correct.
Yeah. Which would do the trick.
I like the stone wall.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. I mean,
Tim, what do you think about that?
we could put,
Yeah.
say, one here,
Yeah.
and maybe one here, and then one here, and then we'd have the similar kind of spacing.
And I think the image I think the fixtures are beautiful, by the way. It's just the image of those fixtures on a stone pier, I find, we just don't see that. I don't know when we've ever, I understand what Dennis is saying about bollards, but that's an institutional look to me. That is not that's not where we are. So, but I think the fixture is great. So if it was integrated into the wall, and maybe there's one fixture on a pier that faces westerly, so you don't see it. Because I think that's a great image. If you go back to the site plan, just trying to have it so you don't see lights that are on piers, stone piers that are part of a wall. I just don't think that's a precedent we want to set.
So
Yeah.
can we put one here on this?
Yeah,
on the
one
inside
there that
face here,
faces west,
and then maybe
and
one here, or I don't know which side is better, one here or one here.
do you need those?
That's still
I
the
mean,
same problem.
I mean, Concord doesn't have those kind of lights and stone walls at front doors, so there's going to be a light at the house. There's street lighting. What is the need for adding more lights? we're always fighting against too much lighting, and landscape lighting is proliferating like crazy, as you know, as a landscape architect. So
I
we're
do.
trying to control that.
Well, you're preaching to the choir over here. I am not a proponent of the kind of lights that we see all over the place. And I would say that, with all my experience, this is not that. I mean, it may look like a lot of lights, but it's pretty modest. And these are very subtle lights. But I mean, if you think it's not appropriate to have light at the gateway main entrance to the front door of a house, fine.
So remove those.
Commissioners?
Yeah. Dennis,
Yes.
you like to think about lighting sometimes?
I think the less better. I don't have a particular problem with them on the stone piers, particularly if they're done in such a way that they're lower or they're facing in and giving light. I mean, you could put it facing in here, which would still light up this area. It wouldn't be as strategic as it would be if it were facing the walkway. So I don't have any particular opinion on it at this point.
All right, but I
Sorry to
think,
be unhelpful.
all right, that's all right. I'm not calling on you again. No, I'm just trying to help you condense things. So Wes, the lights in the wall, as you
Mhm.
indicated with the red marks.
Yeah.
With one light in a pier low down facing west on the north side.
Yeah.
Works for you. I think that works for the commission, and
It does.
and then with regards to the front of the
Here.
house,
Nothing here.
I think that's what I'm hearing from Lewis and Tim, and possibly Walter might have muttered
Yeah.
along the way.
I haven't said anything about that. The problem with the position on the front gate on the main sidewalk there is, first off, it's the look of that light on the granite post, which I don't think is nearly as attractive as having it in the wall. And the wall, I think, looks great. I think they're great fixtures. But if you put it on the granite post, one of them is facing they're both facing to traffic across the sidewalk from whichever direction. And I don't know that that's the look that you want. I would wonder if you could come the same way that we're talking about putting them inside the wall facing the driveway. Where that arrow is, can we go, say, 6 inches or a foot north of there and have it in the wall canted and illuminating the sidewalk inside where the gate is?
No, these particular lights don't have any directional quality. They tend to fire down and out a little bit. So they're really meant for.
So you can't put it in the
No.
wall
I
farther
mean,
back and still
if
get
you were to say,
walkway coverage.
yeah, if you were to put it here, the plume of light would be here.
Okay, I understand.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, I think the preference for the commission seems to be no lights at that particular point. That light is sufficient further up the path, and then when you get to the front step with the new fixture there.
Right.
So,
Okay.
I
So I think I revised the plan as we were speaking. So one here, one here, one here, one
mhm,
on the inside face here, so it's not visible
Mhm.
from the street.
mhm.
A series of lights on the path lights, and that's it.
Okay. I think that's incorporates what we were hearing. Now, public comment, do we have public comment about any of this? This would be lighting and architecture. We had public comment about the picket fence. Anyone? Anne, do you have anybody?
Nope.
Less. Okay. All right, well, if no other commissioners have anything to say, who would like to make a motion? Remembering that you will need to incorporate the information about the facade of the barn, and the fence and the sound fence.
Mhm.
a nod to Wes just having updated his lighting.
Mhm.
Did we get resolution on barn lighting, the barn fixtures?
No, not really.
No,
Let
Um,
me,
someone
Hey, Kate,
can,
if we have a continuance, do we need to list all these items out? I guess where I'm going with this, as much as I and everybody else would like to resolve this, I think we need one more go round to see what's coming back to us.
We
That's-
need to know what it is that we are approving.
And
Because of all these-
including reconsideration of the barn lights, because I think we could hopefully close this out at the next meeting, but I don't think we could approve this with
with
you know,
all these contingencies.
conditions. That's my sense, as much as I'd like to, in fairness to the designers and client, the owners.
Well, I think also if we continued it the next time, it would be quite quick because we would have ironed all this out. But so you are welcome to make that as a motion or anyone.
Yeah, I guess I'm just asking the question, because we certainly also have gone through all the different points and tried to iron them out, so.
can I make a suggestion
Please.
on the barn light, just to get that out of the way, because we
Hmm.
have to solve that. You're calling for, what do I want to call it? To build out over the doors, correct?
correct.
There's sort of a little coping over the doors. Couldn't you just hide the lights underneath that? And rather than having them on the building, so they would be down lights, they would wash down, but you wouldn't have a fixture on the building. Does that make sense?
It does. I can look at the exact sizing. The build out of that, like, trim projection,
Sort of a little hood, right? Yeah.
hood, yeah, was fairly minimal. The depth of just kind of a couple like a layered, one by, or kind of a piece of trim, that it was just a minimal projection. So it would have to get a little bit deeper to accommodate a downlight fixture, but that is certainly an option. I think I wanted to ask also while we were talking about it, so under that, that's certainly an option. I guess the I know there was a comment about kind of a low wall light. I think there's a reason that not a lot of people have those, just in terms of being able to cast enough light. So another option would be to have a sconce fixture at, a 5'6", 6 foot height, off the ground, as you might see elsewhere, in a style amenable to this. I didn't know if that would be another option. I think, you'd have 1, 2, 3 of a wall sconce rather than the overhead. But
These are all gonna be 40 watt, right? So they're gonna be very low lights. I personally like the idea of very small lights in between each door that are not calling attention to themselves. That's just as downlights sort of lighting the piers to give guidance to the doors rather than a downlight on the door, but that's just me.
So we could have a motion to continue then, and this would all get ironed out. Or we
Yeah.
can,
Yeah.
if commissioners are starting to feel that there's a lot of loose threads out there that we've addressed, but haven't kind of gathered all in one place.
I feel like we've addressed everything except for the garage lights.
All right, so do you want to just iron that out now?
That assumes the 6 foot fence is gone, nothing is being replaced, and the owner's comfortable with that.
Kurt has his hand raised.
Yeah, we're fine with that.
Oh, thank you.
And we're also fine if we get rid of the barn lights. When we drive in, our car headlights will light up the barn anyway. And that's because of the connector. We won't be walking around there that
Oh.
much at night. We're going to drive in and then we're going to walk into the connector. So we're comfortable living without those lights, and we can make it easy for everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that feedback. Okay, then. Motion time? Who's got the mental dexterity to craft this motion?
Not me.
You all do.
Well, the argument for continuing and not for this is that we will be able to make sure that we're covering everything and not forgetting something or approving something without understanding what it is.
You
Just
can make
saying.
that motion and we can find out.
Well, okay, if with no slight to the applicants, I really appreciate the thoroughness, absolute thoroughness of everything that's being done. I move that we continue the application 93 Monument Street to our next meeting, allowing time to make sure that all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted.
Does that motion have a second?
Second.
And I'm going to go around for a vote on that. I'll start with Walter
Aye.
and then Tim,
Aye.
Melinda,
Hi.
Dennis,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. So we will continue to the next time. It will be so we can just iron these details all together in one place and see them all at the same time. It will go a lot more quickly. And it's just that we love this house and want to get it all right. So thank you very much to Carrie and Mariana and Wes and to the owners tonight. And ideally, we'll see you all back in a couple of weeks.
May I ask one question?
Yes.
I was making modifications and thinking this through. If we do lower the stone wall in the front to 24 inches and the piers are 30, that means that the gate, to be consistent, is 24 inches. And reaching down to a latch on a 24-inch gate is quite awkward. So would it be acceptable if the gate piers were just slightly higher and the gate itself remained at 30 inches? Or something like that. I'm not exactly sure what the proper solution is, but
Draw them both out and show us.
yeah, we can draw it out.
That makes sense, though.
Yeah, that's a good
It
point.
does.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Just make it graceful.
Anything else for now? No.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot for hanging in there. Yeah, good night. Unless you want to stay on for the next item.
Yeah.
Welcome to do that, and those people have been waiting. So thank you. Good night to the 93 Monument. And okay, so moving on to Main Street. Oh, there's the owner. Okay. And who's presenting?
I am with Power Construction.
Oh, okay.
So
And you are, can you just state your name?
yeah, my name is Bruce Barbie. I'm the manager for the company.
Okay.
So as it stands, or if everybody's ready, we've been out to their home 3 or 4 times now, had to do several repairs. What we're looking at is they have a slate roof, actual real slate roof on the home. Those repairs range anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000 a piece. We would like to do a full replacement of the roof instead of continuing to go out. It's not going to get any better. It's just going to continue to degrade. It's at the point now where there are leaks inside the home that are, causing damage inside the home. We would like, as opposed to going back with slate, which is prohibitively expensive, especially to the client, as I'm sure anybody might imagine, it's about 3 times the cost of even the nicest roof you could put on. I mean, if I were to price it out, it'd probably be somewhere around $90,000, based on the size of the home. There are basically 2 options we're left with. We are aware that a house 2 two houses down. The house next door has slate still, but the house is two houses down has architectural shingles. We can do exactly the same thing on the home that is, a house down, or we can go with still an architectural shingle that is designed to look like slate. You really can't tell the difference. It's used very commonly in these situations. And it is much more cost effective than replacing it with slate.
How old do you think the current slate roof is?
Oh, man. It would be very difficult to determine, but probably upwards of 30 to 40 years.
So is it soft slate? That's a little young for. a roof.
It could be older than that. I haven't personally laid eyes on it, but I have pictures of it at this point. Let me share my screen here. Right, so yeah, the guy who's been out there says it's in all likelihood about 100 years old for the slate that's there.
Mhm.
If you're looking at the condition of this roof, I mean, it's falling apart entirely
Mhm.
to the point where, like I've stated, there's damage coming into the home. They're going to have to take care of that. It's not going to get any better. And even if we were to go back with slate, it's going to, every 6 or 7 years, you're going to be going back out there to do repairs. It just doesn't have the integrity of laminate shingles that we use now.
You have a picture of this house? I'm trying to picture the house.
Yeah, give me 1 second.
No, Dennis, it's, I mean, you'll see in the picture, but it's, behind, like on the, behind side of Trinity Church. That way,
This is the state of the roof right now. You can see they're breaking, shattering, falling apart.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's in rough shape.
We approved some changes here a few years ago, I
we
think.
did, I think, yeah.
Landscaping a driveway or something here.
Yeah, the driveway. And the house next door did a lot of improvements. All right, well. Those pictures look worse than the ones that I had originally seen with the application. But
I've got about 140 pictures that I have right now of the roof. It's not in good shape at all.
plus we didn't have any pictures of the interior or whatever, that we saw, the wooden roof support, as compromised as they were. But that said, for a preservation commission to have to consign a slate roof to the, dust heap is a sad thing and not something that comes up often. So I guess we want to make sure that this is absolutely the case.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be happy to show you more pictures of the roof. It's just, as you can see, there's no way to really salvage it at this point.
I have two questions. How much of it is a flashing problem? And how much of it is the actual slate?
I mean, most of it is the actual slate. Like flashing isn't used on every part of the roof. Like I mean,
Like
you can
along
look
the
up.
chimney and.
Yeah, I mean, there are some flashing issues, but you see the slate falling and breaking all over the surface of the roof where there isn't really any flashing. We would be reflashing around here, around the chimney and anywhere else that is necessary, but the overall condition of it in areas that are irrelevant to the flashing is just not something that can be continued to live with.
My second question was, I don't know much about slate roofs at all, but can they be removed and some kind of membrane put underneath and then replaced? And other,
Not really, and with this condition of the roof as it is, like you see, there's broken tiles everywhere. It wouldn't really be something we could match, and again, it's prohibitive in cost to do so. Like slate roofing, a true slate roof for this size home would run around $80,000 to $90,000. And I mean, to ask the client to do that would be kind of,
And for a greater understanding, what's the cost of the asphalt roughly?
if we were to go the route of the designer asphalt shingles that would look like the slate, it would be
Mhm.
around 30,000. If we were to match what is two houses down, which I would assume at some point had slate, considering the area it's in, somewhere in the $23,000 range.
Mhm.
Bruce, do you have a image of the architectural shingle you're proposing?
Yeah, I can pull one up for you here really quickly if you just give me a second.
Because I think the submission I saw 2 months ago was not slate line. It was something that just said the color is slate.
Yeah, that's the most cost-effective version. However, if that's going to be an issue in terms of the appearance, this is the alternative route we can go.
Okay.
So this
All
is
right.
what that would look like. It's a much thicker shingle. It resembles slate in pretty much every way, except it's obviously going to have.
Right. Okay, thank you. I think this is a much better option than the original submission, which
Yeah.
was really just a architectural shingle that had a slatish like color. If we think this is appropriate.
Having lived with a shingle, excuse me, a slate roof in Maryland that went through these problems, I'm sympathetic to the owner, although I agree with Kate. I hate to replace an original, well, whatever original is, but a slate roof. But I think from a practical point of view, it's probably the way we need to go.
It would be ideal if we could just go with an architectural shingle in a slate color. That's really what the client would like, and that's what we would like to do for them. The only reason I'm proposing as an option is the other one is because, you know, if you are looking to preserve that, that would be the only way we can do it without it being prohibitive in cost.
When you say other one, you mean the one on the screen now, Bruce, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so do you have an image of the original one that was submitted, just so the commission can see the difference between the two?
This isn't necessarily the color, but this is what the shingle is.
Yeah, I think there's one just called Slate, isn't there?
There is, yeah.
There it is.
Yeah, right. So it's kind of it's pretty different looking.
But I would like to mention that the house next door that I've been referencing has this architectural shingle on it already.
Yeah.
which one? The one we're looking at or the previous one?
This one, not the previous one. It
Is,
may not be this exact shingle, but this is the type of shingle they have. They don't have the previous that I was referring to.
and I'm sorry, the previous one looked a little more accurate, but but the owner prefers this one, or you prefer working with this one?
We prefer this one. It's much easier to get. The other one is kind of difficult to come by. They don't produce the same quantity of it. So it puts us out months on the project, which would obviously lead to more damage to the home. So since this exists next door, and is a little bit more cost effective as well, we would like to go with this shingle in the slate color.
Can you just go back to the other one?
Because the other one's actually meant to replicate slate as opposed to
Yeah, it's been used
a
in
shingle in a
these
slate
exact-
color, right?
It's been used for these exact scenarios quite often.
Well, it's not slate, you know?
Yeah.
It's
But
fake,
it's
it's fake
closer.
slate. It's closer.
Yeah, it's closer.
Bruce, have you ever worked with synthetic shingles, slate shingles? They're kind of some kind of composite. It looks exactly like slate. I had an estimate for a roof I was going to have done. I wanted to see what it would cost to have a slate roof put on it. The slate roofer said, well, you might want to also consider this synthetic. It's called synthetic slate, which looks almost identical to slate, but I don't know what it's made out of. But have you seen that?
I haven't worked with it. I'm not even super familiar with it. This is essentially more than likely what he's talking about.
No, this actually looks just like a slate
Yeah.
tile.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are several products of synthetic slate out there that are really quite slate-like looking. They're not an asphalt shingle.
One of the things to consider here is that you have to, I mean, there are warranties involved in a roof. And that synthetic slate that you're talking about, what I do know about it is still fairly expensive. You know, I mean, I would hate to put them in a situation where we're requiring them to do something they just can't do. It's more affordable than real slate, but it's still going to be double the cost of this.
And Bruce, have you been doing the repairs on that slate roof?
Yes, we've been the one doing the repairs.
So you, if a complete re-slating were in the cards, that's something that your company does.
We do slate, but again, that would,
Yeah, I'm not suggesting, I'm just asking, you know, so you have experience with slate.
yeah.
Right.
Obviously, it's something that's not used as commonly now, so we
Yeah.
do have someone who can do slate. Getting the materials is again going to be somewhat as almost just as difficult as getting this one that we're looking at now. So if it's possible, and I think that it shouldn't be too big of an issue considering that the previous shingle that I was just showing, the regular architectural is next door, that we would like to go with that because it would prevent any further damage from the home that is already historic.
Yeah, understood.
Can I just ask a question? Has anybody gone down to the street to see how many houses have slate at all? I mean, I would think that the majority,
Yeah, at this point, most of them have been switched over. There aren't a lot of slate roofs left.
yeah, it's fine.
Not necessarily an argument for doing it.
In fact, this would even be beyond what most people do. Most people have the architectural shingle that I was previously showing that we submitted the first time.
I just looked up that synthetic shingle that you were talking about, Louis. It looks pretty good.
But it sounds like it's very expensive too.
It is very expensive. Again, like you're basically asking them to double what they're gonna have to do to replace this. If you go with that synthetic slate, real slate would be probably 3 times the cost. And you know, it's not roofing is not exactly the cheapest thing in the world, if we're all
Well,
being honest.
The house you're talking about with the other side, is it the one right next door, the gray house? I'm looking on Google Maps now. Which one are you referring to? The other
That
neighbor?
would be, so my colleague Manny, who's actually been out to the residents, is in the meeting right now. I believe he had his hand raised. He would probably be able to answer that question a little bit better than me.
Okay.
Hmm.
Where's Manny?
Yes.
He fled.
No, he's there.
Oh,
Here.
where? Oh, there he is.
Manuel
Okay.
Hernandez.
Oh, yeah.
He has his hand raised, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Hello.
Hello. Can you state your name?
Yes, my name is Manuel Hernandez. I
Hello.
actually work for Power Construction and I actually been doing the repairs at the house for the last 2 or 3 years.
Mm-hmm. That's right. I saw your name on one of the applications. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I just want to say that I actually my interaction with this lady is actually how I got into roofing and construction. So I've actually been doing it for 17 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I also used to be a big fan of Slate. The problem with Slate is once this old, every 2 years you're gonna be having to do repairs. And
Mhm.
just like I said, we've been there 2 or 3 times already. And the problem is always in different areas. And it's just because the slates are really old. They are not as thick as they used to be. And part of it, it seems like a way long ago, somebody did a bad job because also the valleys are done wrong. We actually had to repair a couple of valleys. They are also copper valleys, which that's another thing that is involved with a slate roof.
Mm-hmm.
So it's also with the slate roof, everything that goes with the slate is copper. Like the hang nails are copper nails, caps are copper, flashing boots, everything pretty much is copper.
Mm.
And that's also the reason why how expensive the roof is.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. So the slates they're just is the hardware failing? Are the nails failing? The slates are failing? It's
All failing at this
I,
point.
yes.
okay. Any questions from the commission?
I'd just like to say, I have a neighbor that has a slate roof. The problem is that they do have to go back repeatedly, and yet there's fewer and fewer people who know how to do it.
Mm.
So you're looking at something that is really obsolete now. And I don't think it makes any sense at all to force them to use actually any kind of roof tile as long as it's the same color.
Yeah, and beyond that, it's not cost like it's just not cost effective. It is exorbitantly expensive to do slate roofing.
Well, going into this meeting, I think as I mentioned, the few pictures that were on the application showed, some chip slates, showed some failed flashing. So I was a little skeptical, but I think like I said earlier, the photographs you've shown and the, remarks you've made, so it sounds to me it's
Yeah,
unfortunately a foregone conclusion.
And another
Yeah.
thing that will be also a problem with this type of roof is the wood sheeting of the roof is actually so old.
Yeah.
There is also another problem. If you see some of the pictures, the areas where I repair, the wood was really in bad shape and big gap between the boards. It's
Yes.
just we're probably gonna need plywood over the whole area to make it good.
Yes, yeah, some of the pictures show the wood, and I saw that in the I saw that in the estimate that was included in the application, that there may need additional plywood. Does anyone have any doubts that this roof is in bad shape? Tim?
Yeah.
Thoughts?
I mean, it's definitely, looking at the photographs, there's a lot of compromises, a lot of patches, obviously, so I get what they're saying.
Yeah, I've never had to do this before. I've been doing historic districts commissions for 24 years. And so it's a sad day to say goodbye to a slate roof, but this might be that day. I don't know. Someone
Yeah,
has to make.
in addition to what Manny said, I've been in this industry for about 16 years now in total, and every slate roof we've come across, whether it was in a historic district or not, has eventually gone away from it because it just doesn't make sense anymore. And like one of your board members said, it is obsolete.
So I would say, well, a lot of things we deal with are obsolete.
It's true. That's
Uh,
what we
yeah,
do.
no,
That's our bread and butter.
It's the
Yeah.
nature,
Like
the
most of
nature of
them.
the beast here.
No, wait a minute. Yeah.
Well, I would say, I think we should probably set aside a 15-second mourning period for Slate. The other thing in the broadest sense is I think that we should make sure that it's understood that the preference of the commission would be for preserving slate roofs whenever it was not a hardship to the owners. I would not want to be on record for advocating replacing wholesale slate roofs, but we do understand that it is not something that everybody can do or is going to put the effort or expense into doing. So the commission's take on it should be, I think, that we would be much happier if slate is preserved, but understand full well the hardship it presents. And grudgingly, I will say goodbye, slate.
It would be a nice idea to have a fund, the Historic Commission could have a fund that gives financial assistance to saving slate roofs.
I think you should
The
see
federal
that. That'd be
government will
wonderful.
step right up these
Louis,
days.
you want to start that for
I
us?
was like,
Yeah.
if they want to
Yeah.
put on slate, they're going to have to come up with a
Yeah,
different.
this is just the climate for that.
Well, I also did a
Application to Washington.
I
Yeah.
did a 3-story high roof in 50 by 50 footprint in standing seam copper. So, yeah.
Okay,
That's a while ago.
so if there is there any public comment? Or any kind of comment, private comment? No. And next I'll look for a motion. Tim?
We
Well-
approve the application as submitted.
You like that? You like that particular roof in material better than the other one?
I kind of question the fake slate look. They never look. I don't. It's lesser. They're both evil to me, kind of. So I don't know.
I
I mean,
would
they're both very good. They're both performing roofs. I mean, but
just for the sake of preserving the rest of the home and the difficulty of getting that material, I would suggest, if I may, that we go with the application as submitted.
One thing I want to add is also the slate kind of like looking shingles. It's also more, you will have more problems sooner than with the regular architecturals just because of the same design. Like you see the space between every tab, that creates problem after 20 years, which you don't have that problem with the regular architectural. The architectural should last you around 40 years, 30 to 40 years. Those that look like a slate usually start seeing problems around 2025.
Thank you. So Tim, your feeling is they're both asphalt,
both
go-
asphalt
what's
shingle
convenient,
roofs.
but yeah. Why?
It's not. I looked at it. It's not a highly visible roof. Oddly enough, you can't really
No,
see.
it's not, actually not. It's not. It's terribly steep pitch.
Because
I
it's
mean,
not a it's not a steep pitch. From the street, you really don't see the face of the roof facing the street. You see the back stuff around the sides.
okay, so there's a motion on the floor to
I'll second it.
you'll second it. Thank you very much. And so I'll go around for a vote. Melinda,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Walter,
Aye.
Dennis,
Aye.
and I am an aye. So it's passed. It's with the roof that you've submitted. And ideally the homeowner can start enjoying a more secure roof sooner rather than later.
And if there's a way to save the slate and contribute it to somebody who needs it, we would encourage that
Slate
too.
roofs in need. Okay, and you know, yes, and so, and you know, when this motion gets recorded, or maybe it's being recorded right now since we're being recorded, we're supposed to say, with heavy hearts, we are demolishing a slate roof. We hope never to have to do it again. We'd rather slate roofs get preserved in all instances, et cetera, et cetera.
If we're making a list of things that we talked about in our guidelines that we ought to take a look at, I'm looking at the guidelines now. It says nothing about slate roofs in here other than repair.
That's correct.
So the guidelines don't really help us at all in this situation.
No, although the other, they're so sparse, they don't really work against us either. So there's that.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I agree. That's one that probably needs a review, but otherwise, that's it. You're free to go or stay for our final bit of business.
Thank you.
But
Thank you very much.
thanks, thank you, Manuel. Okay, last thing, super quick. I think we just have some minutes to review. Site visit minutes, I actually reviewed them. And I have a change to make. Who am I making it to? Anne, Kim?
Yes, both of us. Right. I was actually wondering about the attendance. I tried to do it from memory. 'Cause
Oh,
I've
okay.
gotten sort of mixed signals on whether we need minutes for those or not, but I guess we do.
For the
So
site visit?
right. So if you could really look over the attendance, that's the.
I did, and I did remember it.
Okay, good.
Even back to March 2024, which means I need to get a life. But that was accurate. And April 17th was accurate. And May 8th was inaccurate because I was not there.
Okay.
I also wonder if this is just a little, extra verbiage. Do we need to state if who chaired it at the time? I mean, because
We probably do. Okay.
does it, so on March 27th, Dennis was not there. I was the acting chair.
Okay.
On April 17th, Dennis was there. And on May 8th, Dennis was there.
Okay.
With regards to the actual minutes for the other two meetings, I scanned them for egregious errors, but I was not at either meeting, so I couldn't really comment.
Well, on 9/18, when the Von Braun's property was being considered, page 3, it does say that Mr. Whitney moved a motion and that he seconded a motion.
He's so greedy.
So I'm not sure. I'm not sure who did what without watching the video again, but
Okay.
I don't believe
we'll
that
check that
that's possible.
Okay. And I think,
Can I say one more thing about that meeting as well? We also considered a certain property on Lex, and I know that this is the transcription is being done externally, is my understanding, and I am concerned, I guess, a little bit that the historic record does not fully express the sometimes concerns of the commission as fully as might be, specifically in this case where things had been done without approval. And it's just sort of mentioned in passing at the end of the sentence a couple times. But I think that more should be made of that in meeting minutes. That's it.
all right.
Not for discussion right now, but it's something we should talk about at some point, probably.
Well, or if you remember them, you could amend that. You could add that as a, correction, right?
Well, if you want to postpone the approval of 9/18, I'd be happy to take a look deep at it more deeply and do that.
Okay, then, let's do that. We'll postpone
Okay.
9/18, but we'll approve the others.
Yes, please.
Okay. A motion, please.
move that we approve the meeting minutes for site visits and regular meeting as submitted for 3/27/24, 4/17/24, 5/8/24, 8/28/24, and continue consideration of the minutes of the regular meeting of 9/18/24.
Wait a second. Second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Dennis.
Keep things moving.
Yep, exactly. So seconded. All in favor? I think we can just hold our hands up for this one. Aye, looking pretty
Aye.
good. Thanks, everybody. And I think that's it. Oh, we did have something else, but you know, it can wait till the next time because it's 9:21 and we only had 2 items.
But we did a thorough job.
Yeah.
You don't love that house so much.
Well, you know, it's,
Like-
I feel like you kind of have to say that to people because I think it's easy to think like they hate me and they hate my house. And it's like, actually, we, you know, it matters.
We
So-
love your house too much. That's the problem.
Love your house
That's
so
right.
much.
The French
Never
have the
leave-
phrase, au
Never leave
contraire.
us. Yeah, so I think that's it. And, oh wait, and there was something we thought we were gonna raise with the commission. It can wait. You can wait 3 weeks or whatever it is. So motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
A second.
All in favor? Yes, second,
Second,
right? All in favor?
All in
Okay, good.
favor?
All right.
I
Aye. Thank you very much, everybody.